Welcome to the Sisterhood of SWEAT. I am here today with my hubby, Tracy Mitchell. Very excited to introduce you guys to him. He's never been on the podcast before, well, I take it back. He has. You just don't know it because we didn't put it out there.
Very first episode.
Yeah, he helped me. He broke me in. Oh my goodness. Well, he is a structural engineer. And he started from basically nothing. He grew up in the country. He says he didn't even have cable, right, hon?
Yeah, that's what happens when kids grew up without cable.
Yeah. He learned how to make all kinds of strange noises.
Self-entertained.
And he would, on the first 20 minutes of each date that we had, he would literally do all these impersonations of all kinds of characters, and he was very entertaining, but I thought, geez, this is kind of strange. Like, I don't know about this guy. And then I finally was like, oh, after the first 20 minutes, he gets it out of his system, so I think we're good. I might get him to do one today.
A little bit TMI.
Anyway, we're on this podcast today. We're going to talk a little bit about how my husband, his hard work, his work ethic, how that his support has enabled me to live the life of my dreams. And we're going to talk about how God directs each of our footsteps, and that sometimes we don't really realize or recognize that God is directing our paths. At the time, it may feel like it sucks, or you don't understand, why am I having to sell things like a used car salesman when all I want to do is coordinate aerobics, or when all I want to do is run my own business, or whatever it might be for you. And I can tell you, I can look back over my life and almost see the whole picture now to leading up to where I am opening my new business. I can see each thing that I did, why it happened, and how it contributes to the whole overall picture. So we're going to talk about that. But just a little bit more about how amazing my husband is. He married me when my children, I have two children from a previous marriage that were 10 and 12 at the time. And that didn't scare him at all. He took it all on. He just jumped right in, and sometimes I think you wonder what in the world he might have got himself into, but he has been an amazing dad, and my kids and he are very close, and he is very supportive to all of the children equally. And basically he put himself through college. He started from, living in the country, having virtually, nothing. Like, he, put himself through school. He worked hard. He lettered 4 years as a college athlete, playing baseball. He was a pitcher. And he also coached all of my son's baseball. My son was, a pitcher in college, and he's just an amazing man. And I just am so excited to introduce Tracy Mitchell to you guys.
Thank you, sweetie. It's quite an introduction. I'd like to meet this guy.
Well, I think I might wangle you an invitation to meet him up close and personal.
Well, I hear he's married to quite a hottie.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope we get some work done today on this podcast.
I'll be cutting it short. He's going like this.
Oh my goodness. All right, you guys. Woo! It's getting a little hot in here, but to the topic at hand, I think I want to just really dive back into when I started into fitness. My husband wasn't around then, and I was married, and I think I had just had my first child, and I went to a class. It was kind of like a Jane Fonda exercise workout, and I remember feeling like my stomach muscles died and went to heaven.
It was on a military base.
Yeah, it was on a military base. And I was just like, whoa. And I went home and I thought, I'm going to go back. I'm going to give it my all this time. And on the second class in, I was just really worked hard. And the instructor came up to me and asked me, would I be interested in taking over the class in 6 months when she left? Because back then you just basically got elected. And now I've a slew of training. I've trained for years and years, but then it was just basically, I think you look like you'd be a good candidate.
Especially thought you were natural.
Yeah. So I was super excited, and I took over the class, and I found out I was pregnant with number 2. So I taught all the way up to giving birth to my daughter. And that was quite an experience. Back then, people didn't work out while they were pregnant. And it wasn't the thing. You didn't see Stacy Vinegro on People magazine getting interviewed because everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's pregnant and she's buff and she has a 6-pack. Oh, wait, she's got a baby in her belly.
Maybe it was the baby's abs coming out. Even the baby is buff.
Even the baby is buff. Oh my gosh. But Stacy, if you're listening, shout out to you. She's been on the podcast. You guys can go back and listen to that episode. It was a pretty good episode with Stacy. She is a 3-time world champion of Fitness America. So she's pretty amazing. But, I'm just kind of giving you a little background. I taught, and I remember thinking how cool it was, how much I loved it. And there was 2 girls named Susie and Leslie. And I thought, they were in Beverly Hills, California, and they had their own studio. And I thought, wow, that's pretty darn cool. I'd love to have my own studio someday. And I'd love to be able to work out all day like they do. And back then, fitness was not a career. It was not a career choice. And so these were just the musings and the thinkings kind of in my heart. And how I really ever got into working out was that my mother suffered from manic depression while I was growing up. And I, discovered fitness lifted your mood. And I really, I didn't really understand manic depression. I didn't understand what caused it. I didn't know why I didn't realize it was a chemical imbalance. I didn't know why she was unhappy. I just kind of connected the dots, and I found that fitness lifted your mood. And of course, it's one of the top antidepressants is to work out. So it's almost as good as medicine. So actually, I used it for medicine because I was just like, I don't want to suffer from the same fate as my mom. So I started working out at a young age as a teenager. And then I started trying to teach exercise to all my friends. And so really it's kind of continued on from that and evolved. And so I was just kind of giving the background of why I started into fitness, what my dreams were, and did I leave anything out, sweetie?
Well, there's your all the places you worked at when you coordinated aerobics and you trained other people. You actually trained instructors to teach what you were doing. You have quite a few students that were starting to make a living themselves full time that you've taught.
Yeah. I'm just trying to give you guys somewhat of a background because I don't usually talk. I usually interview people, so it's kind of weird to talk about yourself. It feels a little weird. So basically, when I was married, it was a very physically abusive situation. I had to get out of it for the safety of my children and myself. And I saved the 3 best things from the marriage, which was my 2 children and I. And I could have chose anything. I was smart. I was in the top 10% of my class in high school, but I had never really worked a full-time job because I wanted to just be a mom. And I wanted to stay home with my children and raise them. That was my goal at the time. So when I was out in the workforce unexpectedly, because there's just no way that it was going to be safe for me to stay in that marriage, I literally had a choice. I was like, I can either just work for the money or I can work for what lights me up inside. And I chose fitness, not knowing that it was going to be my vehicle to empower women in the same space that I was once in myself. And so I chose fitness, and I worked at the YWCA, and they found a spot for me. I got, my health insurance. I got the job that, I shouldn't have been able to get on my own credentials because I didn't have a college education. And being a fitness director at the Y required you to have a college education. And I believe to be the fitness director, I had to have a master's degree in exercise physiology at the time. And they made room for me. They even had a women's shelter there, which I needed to push the buzzer a few times when I was there. So it was amazing how I just see how God has always been there for me. He directed my footsteps every step of the way and always opened doors for me. Like, that was a desperate time, but yet I was in the most perfect place to be safe and to learn and I got all of my certifications paid for, all of my holidays, all of my children could actually literally come with me to work. And that was really amazing. Like, I would do a Friday night out for kids, and I overcame my fear of being in the water and became a lifeguard because I almost drowned when I was 2. And so literally I was lifeguarding kids. They were watching movies. We were doing arts and crafts. It was like a paradise for children. My kids loved it. And I also got to work with abused women and children. And that was pretty cool. And to see how fitness really helps lift them up and drive them forward into a better life. And I had basically 2 choices. I mean, the way I see it, I could have lived in my story. I could have felt sorry for myself forever. I could have had the negative mindset of who's going to want me with my 2 children. I could have been kind of down and out, like, versus, living in that I've been beaten up, I've almost been murdered, that whole mindset, because I went to a couple meetings with women that were living in that story, but I didn't want to live in that story. I was like, I am done with that. That's why I left it behind. And so literally I just made up my mind that I was not going to have a pity party. I was not going to I wasn't going to let that define me. I wasn't going to let that define me. I wasn't going to let it define my children. So I found fitness as my vehicle of empowerment, and I moved on and I moved forward and I left that story behind. And so I worked at the Y for a while until I saw they weren't furthering their fitness. And then I decided to go to what was called US Total Fitness at the time. But I met the guy that owned it, and he literally was he wanted me to do sales. I wanted to just coordinate aerobics. But in order to do that, I had to sell, he said. And I remember thinking he was just like a used car salesman. Like, he was just trying to sell everything while I was there. And I just wanted I knew what I wanted. He knew what he wanted. And I thought, all right, I'll sell the used car, which really it was just gym memberships. I'll sell if I get to coordinate. And so that became what I did. And I remember thinking he would come in and he would close a deal. He would teach us how to profile people. I got so, I literally never thought I'd be as good as him. I just thought I would watch him and I'd just be like, whoa, he'd come in and close a deal. I remember I got so good at it, it became a game. I would know what the people did. I would know what their profession was without ever looking at the paper that they answer all these questions on. I would just play this little game, and I never realized this was a skill that I was going to use later on in podcasting and interviewing. Literally, I'm like, okay, this is a good skill to have. But at the time, I didn't see the value in what I was doing. It was just a means to an end. And I literally learned off one of the best salesmen on the planet, and I became as good as him. I became the closer. And I met my husband at this gym. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what do you remember about that?
I remember my first image of you. I'd be probably warming up on the cardio machines, which was kind of like in the middle of the gym, and there was a corridor to the right of all the cardio machines. And I remember you would have on your all blue outfit, and you always had a smile on your face. I remember you just walking back and forth from either the aerobics room back to the office to the front. My first image of you in my mind is always of you smiling.
Well, kind of really, I mean, I remember the first time I really took notice of you. You were sitting on a bike, on a recumbent bike, and my husband had his hair, it was wild, it was curly and red and longer, and he had an earring in his ear.
Had a full mullet.
Yeah.
That's when mullets ruled.
Yeah, and he had a tattoo of an eagle on his calf, and his jailbird, like, black and white striped shirt, and I was kind of like, man, what's with this guy? And then he asked me to come over and listen to, I thought it was heavy metal because I'm like Pollyanna. He was listening to Van Halen, and I thought, he is wild. He is wild. That was my first impression of him. But as time went on, I can remember him coming all dressed up and gussied up to the desk, and he had these baby blue eyes, and I was just like, whoa.
And the tattoo was fake, by the way.
Yeah.
I did not have a tattoo.
He didn't have a real tattoo. I don't know. We don't remember why he had that fake tattoo on that day.
I guess it got your attention, didn't it?
Yeah, sure did.
Almost drove you away.
It was an attention getter. Yeah.
Almost drove you away.
Yeah. And he basically, he came up to the desk, and I remember my friend Margie was like, now, Linda, you're dating so-and-so. And I was like, I know, but he's just so nice. I just really like him. And and I remember her telling me she thought he would make a good dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Margie knows best.
I'm leaving some out. But anyways, so I'm leaving parts out, but maybe sometime we'll tell you. But literally, I lost my train of thought, honey. Can you complete me?
You bought your first condo all by yourself.
Oh, right. Okay, so yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I'd only really worked for 3.5 years full time, and was able to buy my own condominium by myself and my 2 kids. And I was literally dating somebody at the time, but like they never showed up when there was work to be done. And I kept asking all these gym guys, like, can you help me move? And the date of the closing kept changing. And finally the time came, and Tracy was going to help, and this other guy named Chris was going to help, but Chris had a wreck, and Tracy didn't. Tracy showed up that day, and I tried to fix him up with my best friend. I did, you guys. It did not work out the way I had envisioned. And that just was that. Yeah.
You forgot to mention that I was the only one that showed up at the house.
He's the only one that showed up at the house. The other guy had an accident. It snowed. The whole day, my dad was like, who is this guy? Wow. And he was quite impressed with Tracy, which I don't know if I ever remember my dad being impressed with any guys I brought home. He was very impressed with my husband. And I wouldn't have introduced him to my 2 children because I wasn't even thinking of him like that. And he got to meet them just like they are, playing with Barbies and G.I. Joes, like at the time. And, you know, it was one of those things. It was one of those things, you guys. It was a God moment. It wasn't a planned moment. Neither one of us planned it. And I remember we were like in the moving van, and you said you could have almost leaned over and kissed me. And I felt that. I felt that chemistry. Mm-hmm. I felt that. Even though I never really, you would have had to drop a brick on my head for me to realize that I liked you. It was, yeah. So anyway, you guys, he helped me move the whole day into my condo, which I had bought. I was very proud that 3.5 years after divorcing my ex, that I was, providing a really great place for my children. And along with the condo came Tracy. And that was the best part. Best part.
And the weekend after you moved,
my maid of honor in the wedding, who was my best friend Kate, said, I really think you should take Tracy out for dinner to thank him for moving you all day. She was nudge, 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 push, push. Come on. And so then I told my boyfriend at the time, I'm taking Tracy out to dinner to thank him for moving me. And I just want you to let you know. Well, that was the first date. And what would you say, honey?
First and hundreds.
Well, we weren't planning it to be a date. It was just more like I'm thanking him. But then it was the best date I ever had.
Yeah. Well, it didn't start as a date.
Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah. And sparks flew. And we went to Benihana's, and I remember I was looking at, I feel like it was like Bruce Lee or something on the wall.
Well, they had hundreds of photos of celebrities that have come to the restaurant over the years with the owner, and we were just checking out all the photos of celebrities on the wall.
Yeah, and he went to kiss me, but he missed me.
I was standing behind her and went to kiss her on the back of the head, the first kiss, and she just kind of slowly stepped to the right side, and I woofed.
I think I turned my head too.
And then I don't think she meant to, but I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's not meant to be.
I thought maybe I didn't want the kiss. But later on, we went to something called Sleep Out Louie's.
Downtown Cincinnati,
and met all his friends. And then the sparks really began to fly, and we made our love connection, and we've been together ever since. And so that, I don't know. I had a feeling I was going to meet my future husband while I was at that gym, but I just had no idea who it was going to be. And I remember trying to cash my husband out. I was the cash out queen. Like, I sold memberships, and I would cash people out for years. There's people probably still belong to that gym because I sold them a membership.
They would pay so much per month, but if you cashed them out, they would pay for the whole year in advance and get a small discount.
And literally this paid for my children's, clothes for school, and for, I was just all about making sure I was providing for my family. So yeah, I just did what it took to make the ends meet at the time. And basically I learned so much from that experience, because not only did I coordinate, train instructors, learn every kind of new fitness thing that came down the pike, but I learned how to sell. I learned how to manage. Eventually they made me a manager of one of their huge gyms with a bunch of employees. And also I have to credit the boss that I had at the time for teaching me so much about sales, just in motivation and having drive and believing in your dreams. So that was a really strong, I don't know how to put it, but it really was a strong presence. It made an impact on me. That job was only I think I was only there for, I was trying to think how long, 4 years, honey? Was it?
We're close.
Yeah, 4 years. So in that time, I had a condo, met and married my husband, and then I basically went off and didn't, they were kind of changing the way the gym was, and I didn't like the way that I didn't feel like I felt like people were just a number and they weren't making an impact and making changes in their life. And I felt like I wanted to care about people. I wanted to help people, and I didn't want to just sell them something. I wanted to give them something. And that was in my heart at the time. So I learned how to be tough, though, because I think I've always kind of was soft, but it toughened me up a little bit so that I could lead. I think sometimes you can't always you can be soft, but sometimes you have to be tough. So I kind of got the mixture of both. And so then we moved on. Where did we go from there, honey? I was at that gym, and then I went to Body Dynamics. That's where I think I really learned the art of teaching all sorts of fitness classes, training instructors, and just really putting a program together. And that's when I began personal training, because I didn't want to manage anymore. I just wanted to focus on helping people when I had Jake. Yeah.
Yes, no more sales.
Yeah, no more sales. And my boss was like, really? I'm like, yeah, can I just coordinate aerobics and personal train? And I had never really personal trained for a living at the time. And so I didn't know if I was going to like it, but turned out I was natural at that. That was big. That was a big transition. So I was doing all these things, and then somebody bought my boss out. So I went to the next place, and that place, that was called Body Masters, and that was kind of a cool gym. And I learned a lot. She would, make sure to set me up in any program I wanted to offer. I got to meet a lot of amazing people and travel. So that was a pretty cool job. And then, how you're hearing how fitness just kind of evolves. And then I went to, where did I go next? Do you remember?
You went back to your former boss.
Oh, my former boss opened another gym, and I just felt like it was going to be better. It was closer to home. It was more responsibility. I remember being afraid, just like you guys. Every time I've done something new, I've been just a little bit afraid. I remember being afraid, scared to death when I bought my first condo. Like, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to stand on my own? Am I going to make it? Am I going to be able to take care of 2 kids when I left my ex with nothing? And I virtually had nothing, like virtually nothing. And I just, each step of the way, like I had the courage that I wasn't going to stay and take abuse. I'd rather dig ditches for a living. And you guys, I didn't dig ditches for a living, but I learned that I could stand on my own feet, which builds confidence. So with each new leap that I took, I learned that I could do it. I could rise to the occasion, and that, when God directs our footsteps and we meet it with a strong work ethic, you never know what you could possibly accomplish until you try. It's like I always say, there is no failure. You're only learning. You're only having a learning experience. And so basically we went on, Tracy and I, he's been along for almost the entire journey, and he's got to watch me evolve over the time. And where we were at Body Masters, and we went to Fit Quest. And at Fit Quest, I had a lot of responsibility. And I really started kind of almost creating a brand then, though I don't even know if I even knew what that was then. But I had 3 kids, and that was my main purpose. And I was working my job around all of that. So then FitQuest closed, and I remember I went down with the ship. I was loyal. I'm very loyal. I'd had that boss for over 14 years, and I didn't jump ship, which I could have. And all these people jumped ship, and they went to the different gyms, so they had the jobs nailed down. They didn't want the person that trained them how to do everything coming in, and so then that was when I found, like, maybe too much could be a detriment. And so I was trying to decide, what direction am I taking this? Like, I can either go through all this all over again, or I could start working for something I want. So the choice came. I was at I think it was called Neo Limits at the time, and now it's like Club 51 or something like that in Dayton. And I was there, and I could have a coordinating job, but I was also doing my own thing. Like I was starting boot camp outside at the Voice of America Park. And I remember, getting my first TRX and thinking, this is pretty cool. I think this could be a thing. And then pretty soon I bought a ton of TRXs. And then I asked my client, where could I hold a boot camp? And they're like, oh, go to the Voice of America. And then pretty soon I was outside with a full, boot camp teaching outside. And it was like an experience people couldn't get in the gym. And I loved the holistic part of it. Like, you remember when I was doing all these boot camps outside?
Yeah, that's when like the mega corporate gyms started coming in, and even the medium cities like the Cincinnati area, and they were selling $15-$20 memberships, and they were just trying to sell 2,000 or 3,000 memberships at one location, hoping nobody shows up all at the same time. and the smaller locally owned gyms, someone had a hard time competing with that.
Yeah, and it really, literally, it closed down the moms and pops. And I liked working at the moms and pops because people weren't just a number, and you cared about them, and you gave them a good program. And I just really didn't see that. I didn't envision. So I really wanted to help people. That was my bottom line. I wanted to do something that changed their life from the inside out. And so when I started the boot camp, I had a choice. They offered me the position at Neo Limits, and I was just starting this off on my own thing, and I had to choose. And I decided, you know what, I really want to see where this is going to lead, and I've got to put myself into it. So literally, when all the doors close in one arena, which I never thought I would ever stop teaching step aerobics, you guys, which is 25 years of teaching step and Pilates and spinning and just everything that came down the pike. But I just kind of started creating my own brand, and I didn't take that job. I decided to just do my own thing, and have ever since. And I literally was outside, and I remember the first time I saw all the women running the hill, and it was dusk, and I just thought, this is everything. This is everything. And women have come and gone and made friendships that have lasted ever since they first met in boot camp. They have bonded. I mean, it has changed people's lives. I can't tell you the women that have come through my boot camps in my studio, how much it has impacted them, huh?
Well, they learn how to take care of themselves, learn how their body is fed and reacts and responds to workouts. They learn that you're their filter to all the crap that's out there, all the bad information, and just the amount of information can be overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming. It's confusing
for
people.
Everyone.
Yeah. So I try to be that filter, so that you don't have to run off to this thing and that thing and this thing and never get results. And I don't sugarcoat things. I tell people the truth about how it is. And I always try to see what their why is, because really, you got to work on the mindset, and you got to work on the why and the stinking thinking that people have to get the results that they want. If you don't hit that, it doesn't matter how many step aerobics, spinning classes, it doesn't matter, because they're not going to make a change if they don't make it internally. I think that's an inside job. And I really wanted to see women be empowered. I never want to see another woman go through what I went through, where I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the confidence, or at least I didn't know. And I was in a terrible situation. And so that was the whole reason behind the Sisterhood of SWEAT. I truly want to help women build their confidence, their self-esteem, and feel empowered. And so anyway, long story short, we're like moving on here. We have all the, the boot camps going, and then pretty soon it's getting cold. I want to take them inside. And somebody recommends I go to this place with a turf field. And so I did. For the next 5 years, I built up my business inside of kind of like the more modern gym. It's not a CrossFit, but it is very similar. And I learned so many things just being in there. That was a blessing. That really helped to bring my brand together, like I think, to where it is now. And literally one night on New Year's Eve, after building my business up for 5 years, I get a note from the owner. He's turning it into he's signed up for some franchise, and there's no more private contractors going to be in there. And I was just devastated because it worked perfectly with my family. I didn't have to work a ton of hours. I had my, I loved it. And I had my business and within a business. And so I cried the entire night, didn't I, honey?
You're pretty upset.
Yeah, I cried. Oh my gosh, I cried and I cried. And yeah, I was just so upset. And actually, I've thanked that owner, because I would have just stayed there doing what I've always done. And I would have not taken the next step, which was to freaking fly out of that nest. And I remember being there and thinking, well, I can either complain about it or I can do something about it. And so I kind of got my dander up one day and went out looking, and the first thing that excited me is I found this studio, which has been the Chick Fit studio for 5 years, almost 5 now. And I was so super excited. I could envision just training clients in there. It was where I wanted to go. It was the stomping grounds where I really enjoyed training people before. And I happened onto a turf field that was bigger than the one I was at. And I remember seeing it was a warehouse, and I just thought, oh, I should go look over there. And I didn't even know anything about that area. It was a turf field, and literally it was a church, and it had everything I needed. And I have been there for almost 5 years now. And then, I remember praying, because I just started feeling like I've been there and so many good things have happened, but I felt like I wasn't living up to my fullest potential. And I remember thinking about how I used to have 50 plus people waiting in line for my yoga class. And I felt like I was playing small. Like, I felt like I was ready for more. And I remember praying about it and just saying, Lord, I'm capable of so much more. And it wasn't but like that a new owner bought the place and tripled the rent. And then it's time to make a decision. Go big or go home. It's like, I'm going to have to take that next step. So both times it's kind of like you get that push out of the doors closed. You find the doors that are open. You get that push out of the nest, and we're on to the next thing. What do you think, hon?
Well, at that point, our son Jake, he's wrapping up college. That was a big step where we could afford to put some resources into a bigger, better location that would serve the needs of what you were your goals of your business, what you were trying to do. The timing of it, although sometimes you question it, but the timing of it, quite frankly, was, when we look at it now, it could have been better. Yeah,
it couldn't have been any more perfect. God's timing is always perfect. It's always perfect. And I really thought about it long and hard, because I had a forced rest because I had a hamstring reattachment surgery, and it gave me plenty of time to pray about it, to really think about it, and to really make sure it was the right direction for me and the purpose that I have and the calling I have on my life. And I really believe my calling is to help women. So my husband and I went to Lisa Nichols' Speak and Write conference in San Diego, California. And I remember they asked us what our why was, and he's there, and I'm telling him, and I start to cry. And he tells me his why. And I felt like that was like the first time that I really told him what my why was, and it was pure and from the heart. And then there was like another time I had another deep conversation with him about the why, because the why is the driving force behind anything you do. And literally he I felt like you heard me and you really got that. And he reminds me now all the time of what my why is if I get distracted, and what my real purpose is, so that I don't lose focus on what really matters and get distracted by the noise. Because whenever you're growing, there's going to be noise, and there's going to be like, people that maybe, don't understand and feel like you're leaving them behind, and they, there's going to be noise and there's going to be distractions, and you have to keep yourself focused in on your purpose. So yeah, so my why, really honing in on what my why was, because I knew what the cost was. I know how hard the work is after all of this work for, 30 years. And I really had to think long and hard. Is this what I want to do? Because I could have just rode off into the sunset and been done and retired. And so we had this decision to make between the two of us, but we both came to the same conclusion. I was like, I don't want to do this, honey. Babe, I don't want to do this unless you want to do this, because I know how much support this is going to require from you, and I know how much work this is going to require from me. So we were literally counting the cost. Literally. How much is it going to cost us, and how much work is it going to be? And so we made the decision, we took the leap, and we are opening the Sisterhood of SWEAT fitness boutique for women on the same road that I used to sweat blood and tears for somebody else, working 60 hours a week as a single mom. I'm opening up my own business on the same street. And that's ironic. I never envisioned that in a million years. But you guys, you can't despise small beginnings, because you never know where all these steps that connect will lead you to your biggest, boldest, and greatest dreams. And don't think you don't have the tools. A lot of times we don't take leaps because we think, oh, I don't know enough, or I'm not good enough, or oh, I need a college education to do that. And you know what? Everything, like Marie Forleo says, is figure outable. Like, you just got to have the why in place, the drive, and go after it. And, I look at my studio and all the other things that came before as practice for my greater vision. And I see how it's really, really coming in to focus from everything that I've done before to where I am now. Like, even like I worked with Anne Louise Gittleman. I taught on her cruises, and I wrote a book with her. I collaborated on a book called Fat Flush for Life. And I never envisioned that I someday was going to be an author. And, I've collaborated on that book. I wrote 2 more books, and I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be interviewing people like Tim Story on a podcast. And it's just amazing where you could end up if you just put one foot in front of the other and you use your God-given talents. And don't dismiss what God has given you. It would be the biggest thing I would say. And don't make excuses. Give what you have, because it's enough. And so now we're getting ready to, go into the new frontier of the Sisterhood of SWEAT. And I'm very excited about the future and what that's going to bring. And how do you feel about it, honey?
Well, we're not trying to compete with all the big gyms out there. If you want to look for a place that's got 25 treadmills for $20 a month, like we say, if you want a $20 body, go to a $20 gym. That's not what you're going to get at Linda's place. And because how many times have you told me you've seen people go to a gym, they've gone there for years, and they literally have not changed one bit.
Right.
Your gym is not going to be the cheapest, but one thing I've learned over the long haul is you get what you pay for. Quality has a price. But if you're not going to put money into your health, then you're not going to be around very long to put money in anything else, because that's extremely important. It's going to be a place, it's more about the atmosphere and the environment of support, environment of knowledge, environment, a place where your clients, your women can go to literally put everything behind them outside that door.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes when you're small and you start small, you may not have the fancy equipment, but you don't need the fancy equipment. You don't have to have the fancy education. You just need the desire and the heart, and you've got to take action and go after it. And, you know, I just learned that to work with the people that were right in front of me, don't worry about, you know, like if you guys are starting a gym or whatever endeavor you're trying to create, don't worry about whether, you know, you have 100 people. Just work with the people that are right there. Speak to the people that are right in front of you. And it's amazing when you help one person and you change their life, they want to tell everybody about you. It's amazing, you guys. Once I really learned that concept of just connecting with people that are right there and using the resources that are right at my fingertips and not worrying about who has the frou-frou gym that they spent freaking $1,000 on the toilet paper and the lighting and the mirrors make you look skinny and all this other stuff. You know, maybe I'll have the lighting and the mirrors that make you look skinny, you know, at this gym. But I'm just saying, like, that is not the point. The point is to give value to the people that are right in front of you, and that is a whole lot of value.
You've gotten so many clients from just two or three women that have gotten phenomenal results, and their friends, it's not so much they tell their friends see it. They see a difference in their body, they see a difference in their mental attitude, they see a difference in the person. And that, I mean, as I say, you know, doing good work is by far the best form of advertising, and it's the free advertising.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, too, it's powerful to put out and, you know, to know what's in your heart and to put it out into the universe and to speak it. I still remember when I said, I want to travel the world and help women build their self-confidence and self-esteem through building health. That was like one of the most powerful statements I've ever made. And it came straight from the heart. And I just remember feeling like, oh gosh, that's too big. That's too big to speak. But it was just straight from inside. And I'm pretty excited because we're going to take our first step towards that and go to Bulgaria in August.
Not necessarily our first choice for a travel destination, but life throws you a Bulgarian curveball.
I'm super excited. I was just playing with him this morning and asked him if he was ready to go to Yugoslavia. And he's like, what? It's Bulgaria, honey.
It's the damn Balkans.
So anyway, I'm pretty excited. My coach asked me to be in a series of exercise videos with her. And I just know this is my first step towards the vision that I had in my heart. Because you know what, you guys? Every journey starts with that first step. And you never know where your footsteps are going to lead. That's why it's so important to, you know, I personally believe that I have a maker and a creator. And I believe that everything happens for a reason and that he guides our footsteps. And I am living proof of that.
And hopefully in we're going to say 4 to 6 weeks, you should be in your new place.
So that was it, guys. My husband, he was going numb sitting here. He did not realize how long a podcast is. He thought we were just going to do an update. So he was doing this, and I was like, stop, honey. My peripheral vision, I can't handle this. And he's like, I'm going numb, honey. From leaning forward into this.
I was going with my jazz hands.
Anyway, you guys, just wanted to tell that story and just kind of give you a little greater insight into the Sisterhood of SWEAT and what I'm about. So thanks, everyone, for listening. And thanks, honey, for coming on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure.
Can, can you give him like a character to say goodbye, at least?
Well, since we might be going to Europe, I'll use the infamous words of one of our greatest presidents, Ronald Reagan. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
Oh my gosh, that is so appropriate for the time we're in.
We won't go there.
All right, guys. Keep on keeping on, and thanks for listening to the Sisterhood of Sweat with Tracy and Linda.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.